Okay, everybody, we have Maxfield Kaniger here from Kanbe's Markets in Kansas City, and he's going to tell us a little bit about who he is and what he does and how his organization addresses food justice in Kansas City. So thanks for being here today, Max.
Hey, thank you for having me today, Morgan. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to meet and see so many new cool people, and especially people who care so much about the environment and Kansas City and Kansas and the same things I do. I have the presentation I can share. If you want me to do that now.
Yeah.
I figure it's more fun to look at than my face. Yeah, that right is a little bit better visual for everybody. But yeah, so I am the founder and CEO of a nonprofit based right now in Kansas City, Missouri, called Kanbe's Markets. And normally I would get to show a little video here, but I don't think the sound comes through on Zoom. So I know Morgan said she's going to share the link out after, but it does a much better job of kind of showing what it is that we do than I ever could, and where there's a lot more gregarious than I am. Before I get going any further, here's some of the kind of words that are used to describe food access or lack of food access. Food insecurity is really describing a lack of consistent access for people. Food desert is a term most often used to describe the areas in which food insecure people would live. And food justice is an idea that we all are working on here at Kanbe's, where everybody, I think, deserves access to quality, healthy food. And before I keep going any further, I will say that I feel a certain type of way about all of these types of terminology. Regardless of the issue, I think that it's important to think about, like, these are some of the most common terms. Some others out there that you may or may not have heard of would be like food swamp, because we think about that there is food in these areas, but they might not necessarily have healthy food. And so swamp over desert is used. And then there's also a term that's being used a lot more often now called food apartheid, which really talks to the intentionality behind systems and our choice to do good or not, and how that impacts other people. I think all of these things are really important to talk about and discuss, but not at the detriment of progress. I think the best case scenario with any term like this is that it'll be slightly pejorative. And so when we think about or talk about these things, the purpose for me to use a term like food insecurity or food desert is to put a picture in your mind of an issue and let us think about how we can improve it for the individuals that we're at least at our organization here to serve. Does that kind of make sense? Yes, no, maybe, I hope so. That's my teeny little soapbox that I'll hop off of, but our mission then at Kanbe's is really to build a more equitable food system. So we want to give access, raise awareness, and improve health. And we're looking at how do we meet people where they are and try and provide something that everybody should have access to any day of the week in a way that is easy for them. We start by getting food in. So we at our core are kind of a distribution organization. And this is actually a little bit older of a slide, because that redirection program has now actually just about crossed 500,000 pounds of produce so far this year. Which is a little up from the 200. So we last year did a total of just over 200,000 pounds of food. And so this is food that we get from local wholesalers. Really, we work primarily with CNC Produce and Liberty Fruit here in Kansas City. These are wholesalers that sell to grocery stores and restaurants and things like that. And they don't want to throw food away. They don't want to send food to the landfills. It's really the large scale nature of our system makes that the the option that they have. So they are excited to give this food to us, which is why we've able to grow so quickly year over year. And there is a ton more out there that they want to get to us. We are really kind of stair-stepping it up with how many outlets do we have and how many volunteers do we have to come into our space to help us redirect it. Because as you can see, we have kind of the 4 paths of redirection. So our first path is our kind of flagship program of access in communities called Healthy Corner Stores. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The food that goes to the Healthy Corner Stores is that kind of grocery store perfect. As we're having volunteers triage the food that's coming in, we want to make sure that what we send out to these Healthy Corner Stores is the same kind of high quality, perfect food that you would expect in any grocery store or anywhere else. We don't want the people that are shopping with us to think that because they're having to shop at some of these convenience stores that we work with, that the quality should be any less. The prices are going to be lower, but that's one of the things we need y'all's help with, is how we make that happen. That second path of redirection that's on there, that community partnerships, this is food that is not quite grocery store perfect. It's not something that we would be proud to sell, but it's still something that I would be perfectly fine to eat. It's something I do eat that I'm happy to take home and make a meal out of, but it really needs to be turned into a meal that day or the next day. And so right now we have a little over 35 different organizations that come and pick up from us every single week. And they're organizations here around Kansas City, like you might have heard of, like Thelma's Kitchen or Nourish KACEE or Bishop Sullivan. So organizations that are creating meals for people who don't really have another place to turn, and we're trying to help get more healthy options into the meals that they're cooking for their constituents. The next level down is the food that is not quite where I would want it for people, but animals might still be perfectly happy to get it. So we have like the Kansas City Zoo picks up from us at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. We have a few like Lakeside Nature Center and a few other like animal rehabilitation centers. And actually one of the rehab centers taught me a thing in that they actually want food that's kind of mixed in with some of the food that really is bad and needs to go to compost, because they want the animals, before they would be reintroduced to the wild, to be able to tell the difference between food that's good to eat and food that's not. So they like that we have food that they can kind of mix that in and let the animals figure it out for themselves. Not an intended part of this or something that I would have had any idea about, but we like to listen and learn from the people we work with. And when they tell us a thing, we try and build that into this system. But then everything that doesn't go to animal consumption is eventually composted. So none of the food that comes into our warehouse goes to the landfill. So because we have volunteers that are coming in and touching every bit of it, if we have strawberries that are in clamshells, those plastic clamshells, we can compost the strawberries. We actually wash the clamshells, and those are actually getting donated to an organization called Scraps KC, where they reuse them for art supplies and other things like that. If it's other plastics like grape bags and things like that, we're also washing those and then recycling those to the best of our ability. And then the cardboard, like you can see in the picture, everything comes in those cardboard boxes. We bale up the cardboard and recycle that as well. So trying to get to a point of as zero waste as we can, as we're kind of building this thing from scratch. And my hope is that as we continue to grow and scale, we do it in a way that thinks about the full cycle of our food system. But from there, I will tell a little bit more about the Healthy Corner Stores. So this is the program that we really got started with a few years ago. It's about access. It's about meeting people where they are. After a few kind of bad ideas, like a full-size nonprofit grocery store, and even a mobile market, which I'm a fan of, but wasn't really the right fit for us. I realized that in Kansas City, there are hundreds of these convenience stores that are all over the communities that we're trying to serve. And rather than trying to build something from scratch, we thought we could create a model that would support the existing small businesses that have been in these communities for years, that have like the store owner at this In-N-Out on 55th and Prospect, where this picture is, grew up in that neighborhood. He's been there his whole entire life. He knows every single person that comes into that store. And so when we can help him sell healthier foods, he's all about it. And the people that are coming in to shop with him have a level of trust that I personally could never have. So what we do, we buy the cooler and that kind of standing rack with baskets on it. We buy both those for the store, and then we bring the produce in 7 days a week on consignment, or excuse me, it's 5 days a week right now. Gas is expensive, so we are at 5 days delivering right now. But we are the ones that are bringing the food in. We're the ones ensuring the quality of it, and because it's brought in on consignment, it's a lower risk to the small business owner. He's not having to buy a case of bananas or a case of carrots and set a price that he can make a little money on and he hopes will sell. We're able to bring it in, and if a banana does go bad, we take it back, we bring it back into the warehouse and make sure it goes out the way it needs to. It also means that we get to control the price of all the food in these stores. So because we own the product all the way through, we can ensure that the price points are set at something that is affordable for the communities that they're in. Because for me, accessibility isn't just about how close are you to food. If a Whole Foods popped up in some of these neighborhoods, it wouldn't necessarily mean that everybody's able to shop and buy healthy food, because I can only rarely shop at Whole Foods and still pay my bills. And that's really what we do. We want to make this as easy and accessible, both proximity and affordability, as we can for the people in these communities, so that they can make the choice as easy as possible to eat healthy food. And it's been really exciting to see the choices people have been making. We do get a lot of people talking to us about, or asking questions about how they can cook the food. They're asking questions about, should I be eating more of this or should I be eating more of that? And we're happy to share that information, and we're building out some more educational type programming. But I felt like we really had to start with access. We had to put the food there first. We had to earn trust first, and then we could start some of these next steps. But the idea is really to grow that model. So we are unique in that we are the only organization doing this kind of distribution model to convenience stores anywhere in the country. It's actually really exciting to see that we have partnered recently with the Food Trust, which is a nonprofit out of Philadelphia that has kind of led the charge on using convenience stores as access points for healthy food. But they typically, with all of the stores that they've worked with, have done more of the, here's how we can invest in making your store a lot prettier, so we can get you new lights and signage, we can get you a relationship with one of these wholesalers, but then they're a lot more hands-off. So it's still on that small business owner to order the food themselves, to market it, to merchandise it, to price it, and hope for the best. We have taken the approach of handling that part of it for them so that they can focus on running their business and we can focus on providing healthy food. And it's grown quickly. So we started delivering in 2018. I thought it would take us about 3 years to get into 9 locations. We are in over 40 locations now, and have a growing wait list. And not only a wait list of locations here in KC, but we have interest in other cities kind of across the country, and in how we can kind of replicate this model everywhere else, because a lot of cities have this issue, and I think that we've stumbled into a solution that really, again, meets people where they are and tries to make it as accessible and easy for them as possible. And that's really how we're going to kind of continue guiding our organization and really continue to make decisions, is through community engagement, is through listening first. Part of the reason it took me a while to come up with this idea for how we get food into communities is because I was coming at it from what I thought was the right idea. So the nonprofit supermarket I kind of briefly mentioned was, again, it's my idea because that's what I had always shopped at. I'd always just kind of gone to a grocery store, gotten food, and gone home. The more I spent time in the community talking to people like Miss Lackey, talking to people who are shopping at convenience stores, the faster I was able to realize that this is a solution that actually works for them. And so as we continue to develop programming, whether it's educational programming, whether it's working with other nonprofits or schools, or whether it's working with prescriptive food maybe, or it's working in meal creation or development or value-added products, all of those decisions are going to be guided by the people we serve. And that's really kind of our hope for the future, which, I mean, it takes a lot of pressure off of me. So I don't have to actually come up with anything. I just listen and nod my head when people come up with better ideas and do my best to help them implement it, which is fun and exciting, and also something that I believe is sustainable in the long run, because it continues to let the people we're here to serve be the solution and be really a part of and engaged in the work that we're trying to do. And that's really where it's going from here, is what the future of food can be, and really what I believe is something where we have an equitable food system, and everybody has that consistent access to fresh, healthy, and affordable food to feed their families, while we're also developing on the ag side a more regenerative food production system. That's kind of my spiel, and I'd love to offer any opportunity for questions or anything like that from there that you all might have.
I just love that you do this from like a community-led perspective. It's something that we talk a lot about in KACEE and like developing our programs. And so it's just really inspiring to see your like vision come to, or not even your vision, their vision come to fruition by listening to the people who are impacted.
Yeah, I'm a slow learner. That one definitely took a little while for me to get used to, but it's been the best and most rewarding part of this work from the moment it dawned on me. I love hearing that you all at KACEE do the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's like a mindset shift. You know, I mean, we think that we as the organization are supposed to be like kind of setting the path forward and stuff, but it's like it doesn't really work. Like you can't come to a community of people and say this is how it should be done. You know, they're the ones in the community. So yeah,
I love it. It's, I mean, I still feel like I have a responsibility to think and take in a lot of different perspectives and hear and ask good questions and see the whole system and how it kind of works together. And so I have a responsibility to constantly listen and learn from not just, you know, this community over here, like in this particular neighborhood or in a number of neighborhoods as a whole, but listening to the like wholesaler, the producer side, and seeing how can we make this work better together. I mean, we've started working even with some smaller like urban growers and smaller farmers like within the community, and trying to bring them to the table with some of the larger wholesalers, because you know, we're beginning to have some of the conversations around, you know, there is a difference for me between a farmer and a gardener. And so some of these community gardens are great, but not everybody there wants to be a farmer. And some of the people who want to be farmers are still acting like gardeners. And so how we have that conversation in a way that is uplifting and really more facilitated by us. We just kind of create a space for it and can sit and listen, and the feedback and the conversations you hear, I feel like I learn so much just kind of reading between the lines and listening to what people say and how they say it and how they approach each other.
I love your name.
Kanbe's?
Yeah, I
you.
was wondering at the beginning how it got its name, and then that was really cool on your last slide. It was like, wow, that's such a good name.
Oh, thanks. It wasn't too cheesy.
No, that was like the best part. It was like, so good. Are you, I hope, coming to our conference in November?
In November? Yeah. Is it been sent? Morgan, you said if I've got nothing else on the calendar, I do whatever my calendar says every day.
It's in Kansas City.
It says you need to come to the conference. Is what your calendar this because this was awesome. It'd be great.
Yeah, I would love to be there. Yeah, if you send me the calendar invite, I will make sure to put it on there.
Yeah, I'll send you the info.
Thank you, Lauren.
Max, I have a question.
Shoot.
So when you start a corner store or go in and put in food that is different from what, the typical known food is, do you reach out to the community and let them know that you're there, or let them know, like, do you have recipes that you give to them? How do you let them know, or let them know about a new kind of a food?
That's a great question, and something we are still constantly trying to improve on. So we really, in the beginning, when it was more just kind of me, so the first 12 stores I kind of delivered to on my own. And so I would spend a lot of time at the stores. I'd spend a lot of time in the community. The pandemic threw that off a little bit. We expanded quickly because we had a lot of these stores on wait lists. So we went from 12 to 40 in 2020. And there wasn't really as many opportunities to work directly with people in the community. Everybody was kind of figuring out, like, can I even be around and talk to people? As things have, I'm not going to say normalized, but opened back up a little, we've gotten really intentional about that. The partnership I briefly touched on with the Food Trust out of Philly, it's a grant that they've given us. So we are at 2 different locations 2 times a week, where we set up a table, we bring recipes that we have developed with the food that we bring and other ingredients that are in the stores. So like, I think, what was today's, they went out and they were making like protein balls out of the, because a lot of the stores will have oatmeal, like, so they took like oats and banana and honey and made little kind of protein balls. So we will make those and hand them out there. But we also talk about different serving sizes, different, like, what fruits or vegetables help with what. I look at cooking, I'm trying to make it as approachable as possible. So for me, I want to bring recipes, but I want to bring them in a way that is really flexible, and it's tricky. It's something that, as you get further along in cooking, like, oh, I don't need that, I can replace it with this. Or if you're a farmer, like, all of these different vegetables are kind of in the same family, and this one might be a little spicier than this one might be a little tougher than this one might, whatever it may be, but you kind of learn which ones are interchangeable in recipes. And so we're trying to have the conversations in that kind of way. So they're, again, as people are there, we have recipe cards that we've left before. We have recipe cards that we are currently leaving, but we also try and be there at the stores individually a lot and talk about, like, oh, well, what have you got in your pantry right now? Or how many people are you cooking for? What type of food do you like to cook? Do you want it to be just like a cold dish, like a salad where you don't have to actually cook or heat things, or are you wanting to cook something? It's a blend, and we are learning, but I want it to be, as, again, my goal for that is trying to tell people that it's okay to just give it a shot.
Very good, thank you.
I have a question about like rural food apartheid. Is that, I mean, and obviously your focus is on an urban area, but is that part of the conversation? And, like, I'm just curious about that. It kind of hit me, when was that? Earlier this summer, we went to Strong City, Kansas, to, like, hike and stuff. And it's a beautiful area, but we realized, because I think we stayed overnight. Geez, my memory is so bad. But anyway, we were looking for food to buy, to not go to a restaurant and to actually, like, buy some food. And we realized that the closest grocery store was like 90 minutes away. It wasn't, I don't know, in a rural setting, it wasn't something that I really thought about, but all they had in town was a Dollar General. And so really no produce. It was all, like, processed foods. So anyway, I'm just curious about, like, the conversation around rural food apartheid.
So that's one. and it's a great question. And I am definitely taking the low-hanging fruit of trying to, pun intended there, of trying to get food more accessible in urban areas, because it's just easier with more population density to move a perishable product. There is a conversation I get to be a little bit of a part of tomorrow. The White House is having a conference on hunger, nutrition, and health all day tomorrow. I think they're going to be broadcasting parts of it or some of it live out. I don't know. But that's a big part of the conversation that needs to happen is how do we get food into these more rural communities? We are trying to use again, it's all kind of in the trial method or trial portion right now, in that I'm wanting to use the kind of revenue and sustainability that we can get from selling this produce at affordable prices in a city to help kind of continue to branch out and spread to the more rural areas. So if we can get to a point of almost profitability as a nonprofit, or of a real sustainability, then we can kind of stretch out to less sustainable areas. So we actually, for the last 2 years, we're working with the Mid-America Regional Council, and we're running kind of Meals on Wheels. And that we were doing about 25,000 meals a month. And it was different, like when we started looking at like, what does it cost us to deliver meals to a home that's in the heart of Kansas City? And if we can do 50 stops in a day, what would we have to charge theoretically to break even and make this program work, versus what would we have to charge per delivery if we're going, because we did deliver into 5 counties. So we were delivering over an hour away at times, and the cost per delivery goes up dramatically. And so looking at how we find different solutions in those areas, we were looking at, like, do we set up kind of a distribution spot where we have more refrigeration and a smaller version of the warehouse that we're checking in on, and then we can distribute out from there, kind of like what a Dollar General might be, but it's more of like what we're doing here at a smaller scale. And it's something that we still are experimenting with, but I really think needs to be a part of the conversation. Everybody's got to eat, and especially in these more rural communities. Like I grew up, my grandma lived in Yodashay, Kansas. I don't know if anybody is going to know where that is, but like southeast Kansas, close to like Chanute or Independence. But it was, you know, they had a grocery store for a little while, and then it wasn't getting some of the love it needed. They've since, I think, revitalized quite a bit, and that grocery store is doing well, but it goes through periods of uncertainty. And I think that is, again, something that we can solve for, but on a federal level, I think, and even the state level, getting some more assistance and support to make it possible for organizations and companies to get healthy food down there. I also think that a lot of the conversation around some of the supply chain issues we've had as a country is a good opportunity to look at building for resilience, rather, you know, building a more just in case supply chain than just in time, because we've seen what happens when things go awry. But that takes a different mindset and a different type of investment.
I live in one of those communities that are, you know, struggling with food security. Lyons is, we used to be a 2 grocery store town, and one on the east side, one on the west side. And then before COVID, a while before COVID, we lost our east side grocery store. And so we just have the one, but the east side is where like the housing for the elderly is, and you know, those things where it was a little bit easier for our elderly to walk to the grocery store, where now we have to call and, you know, make arrangements to get to the west side. And Lyons isn't big, but to get to the west side to get groceries is a big deal. And then we
eat every day.
Yeah. And then we also are a community that is very poor. And so 52 or more % of our kids in the school are poverty or below poverty. And so, you know, there's a lot of them that they rely on the gas station just to get, you know, something 50 cents, a dollar to eat, and it's never good. It's never a good thing. And so we talk about that. That's often a topic of conversation. How can we bring healthier food into our community, especially for our young and for our elderly, because it's just not available.
Oh, it breaks my heart, and that's the part, like the gas stations, the convenience store. That's exactly where I think that there's a lot of future potential. But again, with Lions, you know, it sounds like you and a lot of the people that live there really know what's needed and how to make a change. I just want to hope that your voices can continue to get amplified and we can make that change possible, because it's hard. It's a lot harder to move, you know, a perishable product. It's hard, you know, if you've only got a few days with some broccoli versus, you know, a bag of chips can sit on the shelf for let's say more than a few days. It's harder, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it.
Yeah. When they do the summer lunch programs here, as much as they try to make them good, it really is like packaged this or packaged that, and it's
yeah, it's tough, but I mean, there's so many things and so many, like, we've come so far in how we can grow things in areas that we typically wouldn't have been able to grow things in the past, and how we can do it year round. The future really, like, it is possible to make this all real, and it's just, for me, all of these kind of systems are just made up, so why not make up something that works for everybody?
So if you were going to say, if somebody wanted to start something similar to what you're doing, where would you say they need to focus their attention at?
Well, where would they focus? I think it would depend a little bit on where. Let's using Lions, I guess, specifically. It sounds like you, as well as other community members, are fairly well aware of the problem. I would first work on organizing and solidifying one common voice. And then I would look at again, the distribution system. Our food system is built around scale. And in one community, I don't know if there's one gas station that really has become the hub for that whole half of the city. But if there are 3, 4, 5, whatever that kind of area is, it would need to be the fix. I think coming at it from like, here's what the solution would be, here's how we would distribute to the 6 markets. And even if it's not a gas station, here, gas station is where a lot of the kids can shop for, in this, few blocks, but there's a barber shop that's over here, and everybody knows this bar, and they are constantly going by this. And there's maybe a community center over here that people can shop at, or here's a clothing store, whatever it might be. People are still going there, they're still shopping there. It's what's already in the area. And then because warehousing and refrigeration is expensive, like too expensive, I might lean on, depending on the size of the grocery store, lean on them a little bit to be a part of that kind of hub, to see like, okay, if we can, they already have a relationship with a wholesaler, so increasing their orders by a little bit to get more of the food out, bringing in some volunteers on a regular to be like, hey, can we kind of go through this to see what we can pull out of here, if we can get a little extra space in the grocery store as the warehouse portion of it. And then you just got to get it there. And we use refrigerated trucks here. They are expensive, but they're not that expensive, especially if you go used. And I also think one of the beautiful things about a lot of rural communities is that there's a real community aspect to it, and so making sure that somebody knows how to work on a diesel truck or a refrigerator, because it's going to break occasionally. And coming together as a team. And Morgan's got my info. You're welcome to call me anytime, because I would love to say, oh well, I'm happy to get Kanbe's there tomorrow, but We just aren't there yet. Knock on wood. Hopefully we'll get there soon. But for now, I still want to encourage everybody to keep pushing forward. And the solution in Lions might be different than what I've come up with or what we've come up with so far. And so I'm here to help, and I can throw some ideas at you, and you can look at me and be like, Max, that's crazy. That's just absolutely not going to work. And I got thick enough. You can say, Max, that's crazy. That's absolutely not going to work. And all I do is I just get more excited and be like, okay, let's try this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. Any other questions?
Max, I was just curious as you guys were talking. So you were saying earlier that there's, obviously a difference between gardeners and farmers. But I guess I was thinking, especially for like small rural towns, like, is there a place for like larger scale gardeners or farmers to be part of the solution? Like, and I know, when you were saying in Kansas City, you guys are engaging urban farmers. And so, I don't know, my brain always just goes back to like, I think a lot of those skills have been kind of devalued or lost over time, and so it's like, does that have a place in today's like modern world and the problems that we're seeing with food insecurity, like particularly in rural places? I don't know.
That's it's a great question. So like, is this kind of like, is farming garden, is that something that we're losing its place in?
Well,
We're
like,
not
does
having.
it have does it have a place in the solution? I guess like.
God, I hope so.
Like people in the
Yeah.
community, like
Yeah.
providing in part like their own food. You know what I mean?
I do. I think we need to get to. Again, I will be biased in saying that. And I'm actually on Friday going to be, there's a conference in New York called like Thought for Food. It's all about like some of the future technology behind growing food. There's a lot of like indoor growing and some of the hydroponic and aquaponic and funponic systems that are out there. I still think a plant that is grown in the soil, in the sun, is going to be better than any other thing out there. But maybe that's because I'm old school and maybe romanticizing that idea more. But I think that the more of the earth that we can bring together in one thing, the better. But that's not the future. And we are always going to hopefully have some of that. But the future of getting food to everybody is going to need some of that creativity. It's going to need some of that innovation. I think it's also going to need some of that excitement, because any type of farming is hard work. Even if you're using robots and Raspberry Pi and a bunch of lights and things like that to do a lot of it for you, to automate things, it's still hard work. I think we could, using that, we can grow a lot of things in a lot of places that you typically couldn't, and all year round. And I think you can also get people and kids especially really excited about farming again. I look at like some of the groups of high school kids that we have coming in to volunteer with us, and them getting excited to go out on a 90-degree day in July and water and pick weeds or harvest anything, is a stretch. However, convincing them that they could create a computer program that is precisely like watering the different things at different levels, that they're getting to, there's a lot of teaching that can come, and I think the goal should be how do we make it exciting? That's how I think we'll get more, because the money will come if it needs to. It's just how do we convince people the importance of it and make it exciting for them, because it's exciting and important to me. So I feel I have a responsibility to try and share that. But I do. I think it has a place. And I think building a localized production system with localized distribution will be an important part of our future, and that the kind of World War II remnants of the huge hyper giant supermarket has a place that's not going away, but it's not going to be the like ubiquitous source of food that it has become. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's really, I'm just soaking it all in. It's just really interesting to hear you talk about all this because you are in this every day. And obviously food is something that we all eat every day, but we don't always think about the mechanics and like the how-tos and, you know, the how behind all of it. And so it's just, yeah, it's like kind of mind-boggling, even though it's something it's a system we're all part of every day.
Right. It's kind of crazy, like to even now, I don't know, maybe I'm a weird one because I do love warehouses and I get kind of nerdy about like the volume of, but it's insane. And some of the like first times I would bring after we would sort through some of the food that was donated to us, we would get like all of it that we could out and usable. And then I would literally like fill the back of my pickup truck with it to take to one of the community gardens that was composting it for us. And like one of the weeks I brought over cucumbers. And so I literally had like an F-150, like the entire truck bed overflowing with bits of broken cucumbers and things like that. And I pulled it, and the guy that I dropped it off at grows cucumbers. And he looked at it and he was like, this is more that I will grow in the next like 2 years total. I mean, this is 2,500 pounds of broken cucumbers. What are they doing with this? I was like, oh, this is a teeny tiny piece of what they got in, and it's a smaller piece of what they were throwing away. Like I only got like there was 10 more pallets that looked like this that I didn't have the capacity to take. I mean, it's insane the massive quantity and scale that we really have to do to feed everybody all the time. Yeah. So that's fun. I don't know.
I'm glad you enjoy it because you're making a big difference in Kansas City. So I think it's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're trying again. It's all just made up, and it can be terrifying, and it can also be disheartening when you see those who don't have, or when we see it not work as it's supposed to. Or it can be an exciting opportunity to try and fix something, and we can come at it with enthusiasm that hopefully brings other people to get involved and engaged with it. Because I'm bad at most things, and so if it's just me trying to do this, we're all not going to get where we'd like to be. But there's so many smart people out there that like are so good at so many different things, and because food touches everybody, and because it's so massive, like we need people who understand the education side of it, who understand how to cook food. We need people who understand how to grow food. We need people who are just really organized, because I'm not, and I mean, like my desk is just got like filled with like paperwork and stuff like that, because I don't even like putting stuff in a file cabinet. But I need help with people who are like, no, I want to color code and label everything so that anybody could walk in here and figure out exactly how to pick up this project and run with it. And that kind of energy is what I want us all to take into this work.
That's awesome.
Could I ask a question about like how you choose pricing and like the financial aspect of it? Like, was there ever a time where you talked about whether or not to charge, or like a sliding scale, or all these different that piece is interesting to me.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we mostly get it wrong.
Okay.
We are doing our best, because I've done it to the point where so we have, in the beginning it was easier because there was only a few stores, so I could adjust pricing really quickly and easily. Right now we are moving between 500 and 700,000 pieces of fruit or vegetable a month, and so knock on wood, we're actually getting a new software system that's supposed to roll out this week that'll make changing prices a lot more dynamic across all of the stores. But it's been something that I want to not change so frequently that people don't know what to expect. but that we are changing and adjusting things as we can. Part of the reason we're a nonprofit is I want the pricing always to be guided by what the community or the people that we're here to serve can afford, rather than what we need to keep the lights on. But there is a happy medium on that. One of the lessons I learned early on with that is we actually got a big donation of blueberries. And I mean, like we got, at this point, we were only in like 7 locations, and I got enough for like 70 locations. I mean, we got, I think 4 pallets of blueberries. So, you know, I think each pallet, 2,500 pounds. We got a lot of blueberries. So I was like, I just need to move as many of these as possible, as quickly as possible. So I think at the time they were selling in a typical grocery store, these little clamshells were selling for like $3.99. I put them in our stores for $1. So I put them in for 10 cents each. First day, I was like, I'm going to put 20 of these in every one of our stores. I'm going to put them in at 10 cents and put a big sign that says sale and hope we sell like crazy. I came back the next day and we did not sell a single one. Not one. And they were perfect. I mean, they were a donation. It wasn't like, here's some excess that we're getting rid of, so they're going to be kind of rough. That these were the perfect blueberry. But nobody bought them because there was an assumption of what's wrong with these. If these are so cheap, they're cheap. It's not like these are so affordable that this is a good deal. It's there's something wrong with these. I'm not buying them. So I actually raised the price in like half the stores I did 25 cents, the other half I did 49 cents, and the 49-cent stores sold out all the every day. They went like crazy. So and that's still way more affordable than what the grocery stores were selling them at, but there is at that point enough value tied to it that people are willing to invests in it, that there is something like, there is still the pride of, this is something I can trust, there is a quality here, that I can pay the 49 cents for it. Now it's a conversation that I want to be able to continue to have with the community so that they begin to trust us rather than just the price point, so that when we have those opportunities that we can put it out there at 10 cents and the people are like, all right, I know where this came from and how, so it might be on the shelves for 10 cents, but the quality is still there. It's still something that they can trust. But for now, the way we are able to communicate that consistently is through pricing. And so having higher prices at some point has been beneficial. It's a weird thing to wrap.
That is, I'm so glad I asked that question, because that's not at all like what I was thinking in my mind, but it makes sense now that you describe it. You know, we've been taught that price communicates value, or like price communicates quality. And so
yeah, so if it's so cheap, it's like something's got to be wrong with it, and that was a lesson learned for sure. And it's the other one, because I hate this pricing trick, but it works, and it's something we've held on to. But I used to price everything at even numbers, so it was $1, it was 50 cents, it was 25 cents. I don't know, I'm the person that goes to the car dealership, and if I see a car at, you know, $9,999, I'm like, that's a $10,000 car. But a lot of people, I guess it works, that's why they do it, see a $9,000 car. It's been the same, like when I started like trying new things, we shifted some things just that penny. Like instead of selling something for $1, we did 99 cents. Instead of selling something for 50 cents, we did 49 cents, and we'd see improvements and shifts. And that's one I still can't for the life of me make sense of, because I just don't see it that way, but it works. I guess somebody somewhere in some fancier business school could probably tell you why. It just doesn't make sense to me, but I'm okay with being wrong and saying, all right, if this is what works, then let's do it, as long as there's I guess like an ethical reasoning behind it. As long as I can stand up and say, like, we are doing this because we want to get more food out to people, rather than we are doing this because we need to increase our margins.
Cool.
That kind of
yeah, that was really helpful, because also like I'm thinking like, well, why not just have it be free or sliding scale or something? But there's also, it sounds like you're saying there's a certain amount of like respect it's already in a store. And there's a certain amount of like respecting the customer that is communicated through having a price, even if it's like a very discounted price.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely. And I guess that's a part I will clarify on, is that so yes, it's something we always want to be very discounted. I'd say we're typically averaging at least 25 to 30% more affordable than like even an Aldi. But I will say, like, last time I looked at, our grapes were about half price per bag compared to theirs. The other reason behind like us charging for the food is for our longer term sustainability. And so as we continue to scale as a nonprofit, I don't want to continue to have to rely on the philanthropy or the charity of others or a few of the like wealthy families of Kansas City. I again want the solution to be from the people in the community. And so and it supports the small business. So it's a revenue share. So they do pay us based on the small business owners, they pay us based on what's sold. So it's again, if a cucumber goes bad, we swap it with a fresh one. They're not paying for that. They pay us a portion of the sale. So that way the small business owner can make a little bit more throughout the year. And we as an organization, as we continue to scale, actually, again, theoretically, get to a point where we are very break even. I mean, my goal would be that the Department of Revenue is going to get angry at us for being a nonprofit. But then the relationships that we've built with these foundations that have helped us get to this scaling point, we can either continue to scale to other cities, or we can use those relationships to do things like let's say we've identified 400 families that would like to cook healthier meals for the family, but they don't have pots and pans. Well, now instead of going to one of the big foundations here in town and saying, hey, I need $250,000 to buy a couple trucks and run the organization for a few months, I can say, hey, here are 400 families that we have identified that want to eat healthy, but they need pots and pans. I'm going to buy them pots and pans. So now they can see a direct impact of where that money is going. I'm probably not going to call them again for that same thing the following year, so they can also redirect resources to other organizations. And we've created 400 new customers. So it's again, it's towing that line between the traditional nonprofit and the traditional organization that really has been like an emergency service provider, and this next step of like the families and people that we're really focusing on are people that are spending money on food. They're just buying or food-like products. So they're, yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unless
Definitely food-like product.
Mm-hmm.
Before close to time.
Yeah, I do. I like I don't like having to qualify real food. The healthy foods typically get the qualifier, like this is organic or this is healthy or this is real. You have to qualify. I think we should put the qualifier on the other side, where fruits and vegetables and even like meat, dairy, chicken, whatever are food. All of the packaged stuff is more food-like product. Which serves a purpose. You know, I have an unhealthy obsession with Flamin' Hot Cheetos for sure, but I get to choose when and how often I eat them, and it's rare. But when I have them, I eat them.
I used to love those too.
I know it's not good, and that's why I avoid them. But they're a vice, and I love them, and I also feel fancy because I eat them with chopsticks like a weirdo, so I don't get all the red stuff all over my fingers. So I've had friends come over, and I'll be sitting on the couch eating Flaming Hot Cheetos with chopsticks, and they're like, I'm leaving.
Okay, well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Does anybody have any more questions for Max before we wrap?
Oh yeah, give me one more, or I can't end on Flaming Hot Cheetos.
No, I think that's a good.
That's going to be the end of it.
Yeah.
That'll keep me from opening my mouth.
Well, I'm really glad that everybody here got to know about Kanbe's Markets and what you guys do. I've had the privilege of knowing about them for a while, and the work that they've been doing in Kansas City. And it's really cool if you follow them on social media and stuff, just to see you guys have, when we did the fundraiser for you guys, that was what, like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. And so it's just really cool to see how like fast they've grown and the impact they've been able to have and how that's increased every year. So
yeah, Morgan did our first big fundraiser.
Woo, woo.
Mhm.
It was a fun one. But yeah, so I'm just glad that you guys all know more about Kanbe's Markets now, and hopefully you'll give them some support and give them a follow. And
follow, like, do the social stuff, and we are still new, and so most people don't know we exist, and anything you all can do to help share the word and work that we're doing makes a really big impact, and you never know who's going to see it or where it's going to go from there. So
come to our conference.
Hey, look, send me the email. I'm in.